Hi, very glad to see you on the channel. Before you start listening to the story, write in the comments whether you like the voice on the video. I pulled into the driveway just after sunset, my body aching from the long drive home. The house stood in front of me, bathed in the soft glow of the porch light, looking exactly as I'd left it. But something felt off. Maybe it was just exhaustion, the weight of too many double shifts catching up with me. Or maybe it was that nagging feeling in my gut, the one that had been there for weeks, whispering that something wasn't right. I killed the engine and sat there for a moment, gripping the steering wheel, trying to shake the unease. I had been gone for nearly 2 weeks, filling in for another crew at work, pulling back-to-back shifts to cover expenses that never seemed to stop piling up. Amber had told me to take the job, even encouraged it, saying we could use the extra money. She had kissed me goodbye at the door, smiling, telling me she'd miss me. But now, sitting here in the stillness, I couldn't help but wonder how much she really had. The front door was unlocked. That was the first thing. Amber never left the door unlocked, not even when she was home. I stepped inside, expecting to hear the usual sounds, the hum of the television, the clatter of dishes in the sink, maybe the faint music she liked to play when she was cooking. But the house was silent. Too silent. I dropped my bag near the door, my eyes scanning the room. The living room looked the same, but the air smelled different. There was a faint trace of something floral, something expensive. Not Amber's usual perfume. I walked through the house slowly, taking it all in. The kitchen was spotless, which was strange because Amber was never one to keep things pristine when I was away. The mail was stacked neatly on the counter, another oddity. Normally, she left it scattered, unopened, until I got home to sort through it. Then I noticed the wine glasses. 2 of them, sitting in the sink, faint lipstick marks on the rim of one. I stared at them, my pulse ticking up. Amber didn't drink wine alone. A creak on the stairs made me tense. I turned sharply, my hand instinctively clenching. Then, Amber appeared at the top of the staircase, wrapped in a silk robe I didn't recognize, her hair damp like she had just stepped out of the shower. For a split second, something flashed across her face, surprise, maybe even guilt. But then she smiled, coming down the stairs slowly, deliberately. "Tom," she said, her voice warm, as if nothing was wrong. "You're home early." "Early? I was supposed to be back tonight." She knew that. "Got out a few hours ahead of schedule," I said, watching her closely. "Didn't think I needed to send an update." She laughed lightly, brushing past me toward the kitchen. "You know me, I like to plan things out." She reached for the wine glasses in the sink, quickly rinsing them as if she could erase the evidence. "I had Sarah over," she said casually. "We watched a movie, had some wine. Girls' night." Sarah, her best friend. The excuse was convenient. Too convenient. I leaned against the counter, crossing my arms. "She left already?" "Yeah, not long ago." She turned off the faucet, drying her hands. "I was just getting ready for bed." I nodded slowly, my eyes drifting toward the kitchen trash can. A torn-up receipt sat near the top. Something about it caught my attention. When Amber turned away, I stepped closer, pulling it out carefully. It was from the casino downtown, time-stamped from last night. High Roller Lounge. My stomach twisted. Amber had told me she barely went to the casino anymore, only stopping in for an occasional game. But the High Roller Lounge? That was for people who didn't just play, they spent. I turned back to her, studying her carefully. "How was your week?" She stretched, feigning a yawn. "Boring without you here. Just the usual. Ran errands, caught up on some shows. Nothing exciting." Lie. She was lying. I didn't know how I knew, but I did. Maybe it was the way she avoided eye contact, or how she kept her movements a little too controlled, like she was trying not to look nervous. Or maybe it was just that nagging feeling that had been growing inside me for weeks. I nodded, forcing a smile. "Sound relaxing." Her shoulders loosened slightly, like she had passed a test. "It was. But I'm glad you're home. I missed you." Another lie. She leaned up to kiss me, and I let her, though my mind was racing. I didn't confront her. Not yet. Instead, I played along, pretending everything was fine, even as my gut screamed that it wasn't. Later that night, when she was asleep, I slipped downstairs and grabbed my laptop. I logged into our bank account, scanning through the transactions. The first one hit me like a punch to the stomach. $1,500 charge. Casino VIP services. Then another, and another. Thousands of dollars gone, all within the last 2 weeks. I stared at the screen, my pulse thudding in my ears. Amber had been lying to me. About everything. I just didn't know how deep the lie went yet. And I wasn't going to stop until I found out. The next morning, I woke up to the smell of coffee and the sound of Amber moving around the kitchen. For a moment, I almost convinced myself that everything was normal, that last night had been nothing more than exhaustion playing tricks on me. But the second I opened my eyes and saw the untouched side of the bed where she should have been, the doubt came rushing back. She was up early. Too early. I pulled on a shirt and made my way downstairs, keeping my steps light. She was at the counter, her back to me, flipping through her phone with one hand while stirring her coffee with the other. Her silk robe, the one I didn't recognize from last night, was tied loosely around her waist, and her damp hair was pulled into a messy bun. She hadn't noticed me yet, so I took the opportunity to watch. She was texting someone. Her fingers moved quickly across the screen, then paused. A second later, she erased whatever she had typed and started over. "Morning," I said, stepping into the kitchen. She jumped slightly, locking her phone and setting it face down on the counter. "Oh, you scared me," she said, laughing lightly. "I didn't hear you come down." I nodded, eyeing the phone she had just abandoned. "Didn't mean to sneak up on you." She slid a mug across the counter toward me. "Coffee." I took it, keeping my expression neutral. "Thanks. You're up early." She shrugged. "Couldn't sleep." I took a sip of the coffee, letting the silence stretch. Amber had always been a late sleeper, never one to wake up before she had to. But now, she was up at sunrise, moving through the house like someone with something to hide. I glanced around the kitchen. Everything was neat. Too neat. It was like she had spent the morning cleaning up something she didn't want me to see. She leaned against the counter, her arms crossed. "You okay? You seem quiet." I forced a small smile. "Just tired from the drive. Long shifts caught up with me." She nodded, as if that answer satisfied her. "You should rest today. Take it easy." "I will." I set my mug down. "What about you? Any plans?" She hesitated. "Might run some errands." Just the usual. Another vague answer. Another excuse. I decided to let it go for now. Instead, I finished my coffee and went upstairs to shower. But as I passed the laundry room, something caught my eye. A small gift bag, partially hidden behind the hamper. I wouldn't have noticed it if not for the metallic gold wrapping peeking out from the top. I stepped closer, pulling the bag free. It was from expensive boutique downtown, the kind of place Amber never shopped at unless it was for something special. Inside was a neatly wrapped box, still untouched. I turned it over, looking for a tag. There wasn't one. No note. No receipt. Just a gift. I carried it back to the bedroom, sitting on the edge of the bed as I carefully peeled away the wrapping. The box underneath was sleek, high-end, and when I lifted the lid, I felt my stomach twist. A luxury men's watch. Not mine. The design was nothing like the kind I wore. It was sleek, flashy, the kind of thing a man with money and confidence would wear. Not the kind of thing my wife would buy me. My grip tightened on the box. I stared at the watch for a long moment, my mind racing through possibilities. There had to be a reason, an explanation that made sense. Maybe it was a gift for me, a surprise. But then why hide it in the laundry room? Why was there no note? No receipt? I turned it over in my hands, my chest tightening. This wasn't for me. Amber was buying gifts. For someone else. I set the watch down, inhaling slowly. I could storm downstairs right now, demand answers. But something stopped me. A feeling. A voice in the back of my mind telling me that if I confronted her now, she would just lie. She would twist the truth, play innocent, make me feel like I was imagining things. No, if I was going to do this, I needed proof. I stood up, gripping the watch. If this was meant for someone else, then Amber had just lost a very expensive gift. A slow idea formed in my head, something petty, something satisfying. I opened my nightstand and pulled out an old watch I hadn't worn in years. It was scratched, the band slightly frayed. I took the new one out of its box and swapped them. By the time Amber found it, it would be too late. I placed the gift bag back where I found it, arranging it just as it had been. Then I tucked the real watch into my drawer, pushing it to the back. Now, I waited. For the rest of the day, I pretended nothing was wrong. Amber left to run her errands, and I stayed home, watching the minutes tick by. When she returned, she was back to normal, smiling, talking about things that didn't matter. But I watched her closely. That night, as I lay in bed, I listened to her breathing beside me, slow and steady. She thought she had me fooled. She thought I was just the same old Tom, working long hours, coming home exhausted, oblivious. She didn't know I was watching. And soon, she was on a slip. Amber hummed softly as she moved around the bedroom, her movements fluid and relaxed. She had just gotten out of the shower, her damp hair wrapped up in a towel as she picked out clothes for the day. I stayed propped up in bed, watching her carefully while pretending to scroll through my phone. She hadn't checked the laundry room yet. I waited, sipping my coffee, wondering how long it would take before she noticed. If she had hidden that watch for someone else, she would be anxious about it. But she played it cool, moving through her usual routine, chatting about nothing in particular. "I was thinking of heading downtown today," she said casually, rifling through the closet. "Might grab lunch with Sarah if she's free." Another mention of Sarah. Another convenient excuse. I nodded, setting my coffee down. "Sounds nice." Amber glanced at me, pausing as if expecting me to ask something, maybe where exactly she was going. But I didn't. I just smiled and stretched like I had no reason to suspect anything. By the time she left, I was already 2 steps ahead. I went straight to the laundry room and checked the bag. It was gone. I exhaled slowly, pressing my tongue against the inside of my cheek. She had come in here while I was still in bed, took the bag, and never said a word about it. No surprise reveal, no happy early gift moment, which meant I had been right. It wasn't for me. Now, I just had to wait for her reaction. Hours passed. I kept myself busy around the house, but my mind kept circling back to the gift. Amber should have discovered the switch by now. She should have been freaking out, calling the store, retracing her steps. But instead, she acted completely normal. When she came home, she greeted me with a kiss on the cheek, tossed her purse on the couch, and made small talk while she sorted through the mail. She was hiding something, but she was damn good at pretending she wasn't. I needed to push her. "How was lunch?" I asked casually as I sat at the dining table, flipping through a magazine. She didn't miss a beat. "Great." Sarah and I caught up, did a little shopping. "Shopping?" I raised an eyebrow. "Did you get anything?" She hesitated for just a second. "Just some skincare stuff. Not a mention of the gift." No sign of panic. I leaned back in my chair, watching her carefully. "Oh, by the way, I was looking for my old watch this morning. Couldn't find it anywhere." That got her attention. She looked up from the mail, her expression carefully neutral. "Your old watch?" "Yeah, the one I used to wear all the time." I shrugged. Figured I'd start using it again. Her fingers tightened slightly around the stack of papers in her hands. "Maybe you left it at work?" I shook my head. "No, I checked my nightstand." It was gone. I let the words hang in the air, waiting for her to connect the dots. For a moment, I saw something flicker across her face. Not confusion. No, it was something else. Like she was trying to put a puzzle together. Then just as quickly she smiled. "You lose stuff all the time, babe. I'm sure it'll turn up." And just like that, she shut it down. No reaction to the gift. No sign that she had even noticed. Either she hadn't opened the box yet, or she was better at lying than I thought. That night, I watched her again. I waited for any sign of unease, any hint that she had realized what I'd done. But Amber carried on as if nothing had changed. She laughed at a show we watched together, asked me about work, even curled up next to me in bed like she had no worries in the world. And that was when I knew she was playing me. She wasn't panicking because she wasn't afraid of getting caught. Whatever was going on, she thought she had it under control. She thought she had me under control. But she had no idea that I wasn't the same fool who left for work 2 weeks ago. I was watching now, and I wasn't going to stop. The days that followed were a careful balance between pretending nothing was wrong and watching Amber's every move. She was good, too good. If she had realized the watch had been swapped, she didn't let it show. No frantic searching, no hushed phone calls, no signs of frustration. She carried on as if she had nothing to hide. But I knew better. I started paying attention to the little things. How often she checked her phone, how she took longer to run errands, how she left the house in the evening more than she ever had before. I told myself to stay patient, to wait for her to slip, but it was getting harder. I needed answers. One night, as she was in the shower, I picked up her phone. She never used to keep it locked, but now there was a passcode. That alone sent a sharp wave of anger through me. I set it down before I did something reckless. If I was going to catch her, I had to be smarter than that. Then, my opportunity came. Amber had mentioned a charity event for one of her social clubs, some fundraiser at a fancy hotel downtown. She insisted it was nothing special, just a ladies-only gathering. I pretended not to care, nodded at all the right moments. But that night, while she was getting ready, I saw the dress she had picked. It wasn't casual. It wasn't something you wore to sit around with friends. It was expensive, new, with heels that matched perfectly. I leaned against the doorway, watching as she applied her makeup in front of the mirror. Big night. She met my eyes through the reflection, smiling. Not really, just something small. I nodded. Where's the event again? She hesitated for half a second before replying. The Hilton downtown. Lie. I had checked the local event listings earlier that day. There was no charity fundraiser at the Hilton. I forced a smile. Have fun. She kissed me on the cheek before she left, acting as if nothing was wrong. But the moment the door shut behind her, I grabbed my keys and followed. I kept my distance, driving a few cars behind her, my hands tight around the wheel. She didn't go to the Hilton. She went straight to the casino. My pulse pounded in my ears as I parked a block away and walked toward the entrance, keeping my head down. Inside, the place was alive with noise, flashing lights, the hum of conversation, the clinking of glasses. I scanned the floor, searching for her, feeling my stomach twist when I finally spotted her. She wasn't at the tables. She wasn't at the bar. She was with a man. He was tall, well-dressed, with an air of confidence that screamed money. Amber leaned into him slightly as they spoke, her posture relaxed, comfortable. She laughed at something he said, touching his arm lightly, the way she used to touch mine. I clenched my fists, forcing myself to stay calm. I needed to be sure. I moved toward a row of slot machines near where they stood, pretending to play as I listened. I can't stay too late, Amber said softly. He's waiting at home. The man chuckled. And he still doesn't suspect anything. She smiled, taking a slow sip of her drink. Not a thing. I swallowed the rage that burned in my throat. I had suspected, but hearing it out loud was something else entirely. She was lying to me. She had been lying for a long time. But the worst part? This wasn't the man I expected. I had assumed, wrongly, that if she was cheating, it was with someone I knew. A co-worker, a mutual friend, someone from her past. But this man was a stranger, someone I had never seen before. And yet he knew about me. I forced myself to walk away before I did something reckless. Before I stormed over and made a scene that would only give her an excuse to play the victim. No, I wasn't going to let her control the story. I needed proof. I needed a plan. And I was going to make sure she never saw it coming. I drove home in silence, gripping the wheel so tightly my knuckles ached. The city lights blurred past me, but all I could see was Amber, laughing, leaning into that man like she belonged to him. The way she spoke about me, dismissive, confident that I had no idea, was what cut the deepest. She thought she had me fooled. Thought she could come home, kiss me goodnight, and keep playing her game. But she was wrong. By the time I pulled into the driveway, my mind was already working through my next move. I wasn't going to explode, not yet. I wasn't going to accuse her because that would give her time to twist the truth, to rewrite history like she always did. No, I was going to make her comfortable. Let her think she was still in control. Let her think she was winning. I was sitting on the couch when she walked through the door just after midnight. She looked flawless, like she hadn't just spent the evening gambling away our money and cozying up to another man. Her heels clicked against the floor as she entered, pausing when she saw me. "You're still up?" Her voice was light, casual, but I caught the flicker of hesitation in her eyes. I smiled. "Yeah, couldn't sleep. How was the fundraiser?" She relaxed, slipping off her shoes and walking toward the kitchen. "It was nice. A little boring, honestly. Just a lot of speeches and overpriced wine." Lie. I kept my face neutral. "Did Sarah go with you?" She nodded, opening the fridge. "Of course. We left around the same time. She had an early morning." Another lie. I leaned back, stretching. Glad you had a good time. She turned, giving me a warm smile, probably relieved that I wasn't asking more questions. I did, but I missed you. She walked over, pressing a quick kiss to my temple before heading upstairs. I sat there, watching her go, my stomach twisting. She was good. So damn good at lying to me. But not good enough. The next day, I went back to the casino. Not inside. Not yet. I wasn't going to risk being seen. Instead, I sat in my truck across the street, watching. If Amber had been coming here for weeks, she had a routine. And routines could be tracked. Sure enough, just after noon, she arrived. She didn't park in a main lot, where most people went. No, she had a reserved space in the VIP section, a spot close to a private entrance. She walked in like she belonged there, like this place wasn't just some occasional outing, but something more. I let out a slow breath, gripping the steering wheel. I needed more than this. More than just a hunch, more than just seeing her walk in. I needed proof. And I had an idea. That evening, while Amber was in the shower, I made a call. "Hi, this is Officer Reynolds with Casino Security," I said, lowering my voice just enough to sound official. I was hoping to speak with someone about reviewing some recent surveillance footage. We've had a few reports of suspicious activity involving VIP guests. The woman on the other end hesitated. Let me transfer you to my supervisor." There was a click, then a new voice. "This is Mark, head of security. What's the issue?" I straightened. "We've had a flagged account with repeated VIP charges and some concerns about unauthorized guest access to restricted areas. We need to review some footage from the past few weeks." Mark exhaled. "Yeah, we've had some issues lately. I can grant you access to our system, but you'll need clearance from upper management first." I tensed. That was going to be a problem. But then he continued. "Unless you just need a quick look at something specific, I can pull a clip for you." Bingo. I leaned forward, lowering my voice. "Actually, I'm looking for a guest. Woman, mid-30s, blonde, VIP status. Name's Amber." There was a pause, then a knowing chuckle. "Oh yeah, I know exactly who you're talking about." My grip on the phone tightened. "You do? She's in here all the time. Pretty thing, gets a lot of attention. High roller perks, private access. You need a timestamp on her last visit." I swallowed hard, forcing my voice to stay steady. "That would be great." There was some typing on his end, then a short hum. "Last night. Entered at 8:42 p.m. Exited at 12:17 a.m. A perfect match to the time she had told me she was at her fundraiser. Mark kept scrolling. "And looks like she spent some time in the high-stakes suite. Private entrance, VIP access only. Not many people get that treatment unless they're special." I clenched my jaw. "Special, huh? Oh yeah, the manager takes care of his favorites." Something in my chest went cold. "Manager?" "Yeah, he's got his own penthouse suite in the hotel connected to the casino. Some guests get exclusive invitations. Amber's one of them." I barely heard the rest of what he said. The puzzle pieces were clicking into place, and the picture they formed was worse than I had imagined. Amber wasn't just gambling. She wasn't just spending money behind my back. She was being comped, and I had a sickening feeling I knew exactly how she was paying for it. I ended the call, my mind spinning. I had suspected she was lying, that she was cheating, but this was bigger than I thought, and she had no idea I was about to take everything away from her. I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Amber smiling, laughing, leaning into that casino manager like she belonged to him. My mind replayed the security guard's words over and over. The manager takes care of his favorites. She's one of them. I had suspected she was gambling, maybe even lying about how much she spent. But I hadn't expected this. The private access, the penthouse suite, the comps. I wasn't stupid. I knew exactly what that meant. By morning, I had made up my mind. I was going to catch her myself. No more guesses, no more suspicions. I was done playing along. Amber moved around the kitchen like nothing was wrong, sipping her coffee, scrolling through her phone. She had no idea what I knew, no clue that I had spent half the night piecing together her lies. I watched her carefully, waiting for her to say something, anything that would tip her hand. "Any plans today?" I asked, keeping my voice casual. She glanced up. "Just errands. Might meet Sarah for lunch again." I smiled, nodding. "You two have been seeing each other a lot lately." She laughed lightly. Well, you've been working so much. Gotta keep busy somehow. Lie. I forced myself to keep the conversation light, but inside, my stomach twisted. She was too relaxed, too confident in her deception. If I confronted her now, she would spin the truth, gaslight me, make me the crazy one. No, I needed to see it with my own eyes. I waited until she left before I made my move. I knew exactly where she was going. She might have lied about who she was seeing, but she wasn't smart enough to change where she was going. I arrived at the casino an hour later, blending into the crowd as I scanned the floor. The energy of the place was electric, bright lights, ringing machines, the low murmur of voices mixing with the occasional burst of laughter. But I wasn't here to play. Then I saw her. Amber stood near the VIP lounge entrance, dressed in a sleek black dress, her hair styled perfectly, her makeup flawless. She looked like she belonged there. And she wasn't alone. The casino manager was next to her, a tall, confident-looking man in an expensive suit. He leaned in close, saying something that made her laugh. Not a forced laugh, a real one, the kind I hadn't heard from her in years. My blood boiled, but I forced myself to stay calm. I moved closer, weaving through the slot machines, staying just out of sight. Amber placed a hand on the manager's arm, and he nodded, motioning toward a private hallway leading toward the high-stakes suites. She followed without hesitation. I clenched my fists. This was it. I followed from a distance, slipping past the security guard at the lounge entrance by pretending to check my phone like I was waiting for someone. I had worked security before. I knew how to act like I belonged somewhere I wasn't supposed to be. The hallway was dimly lit, lined with plush carpeting and gold accents. At the far end, Amber and the manager disappeared into a room, the door shutting softly behind them. I took a deep breath, steadying myself. This was the moment. I could have burst in right then, made a scene, demanded answers. But that would have given her the upper hand. No, I had a better idea. I pulled out my phone and started recording. Then I knocked. A pause. Then footsteps. The door cracked open, and the manager's smug face appeared. Before he could say anything, I smiled. Hey, sorry, man. I think my wife left something in here. His brow furrowed. What? Then Amber appeared behind him. And the second she saw me, the blood drained from her face. I held up my phone. Smile, sweetheart. You're on camera. She inhaled sharply, stepping back like she had just been struck. Tom, but I was already walking away, leaving her standing there, knowing she had just lost everything. I didn't stop walking until I reached the casino floor. The noise of the machines, the laughter, the clinking of glasses, it all felt distant, like I was hearing it from underwater. My hands were steady, my breathing even, but inside I was burning. Amber had looked at me like she had seen a ghost, like she had never even considered the possibility that I would find her out. That was the part that got to me the most. She had never feared being caught. I pushed through the main doors, the cool night air hitting me like a slap. I needed to get away from there, away from her, before I did something reckless. Confronting her in that moment would have been too easy, too quick, and I wanted her to feel this. I climbed in my truck, gripping the wheel until my knuckles turned white. My phone buzzed. I didn't have to check to know who it was. I let it ring. Then it buzzed again, and again. On the fourth call, I answered. Tom. Amber's voice was breathless, panicked. I said nothing. Please, I can explain. I laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. Can you? A pause. Then, it's not what it looks like. I clenched my jaw. Don't insult me, Amber. Another pause. I could hear her breathing, could almost picture her standing there in that overpriced dress, scrambling for an excuse, trying to find the right lie that would make all of this go away. Where are you? She asked finally. Gone. Please, just come home. We need to talk. I exhaled slowly. We will, but not tonight. She started to say something else, but I hung up. I sat there for a long time, staring at nothing. Then I pulled out my phone again. Only this time, I wasn't looking for a number. I was logging into our bank account. I had spent years making sure we had a future, working double shifts, budgeting, sacrificing. And Amber? She had been using me as a safety net while she played games in high-roller suites. Not anymore. My fingers moved quickly as I transferred every last dollar from our joint account into one of my private ones. Then, I logged into the mortgage portal. The house was in both of our names, but that was about to change. Amber thought she had been winning. She had no idea that she was already broke. By the time I got home, the house was dark. I walked through the front door, locking it behind me, the weight of what I was about to do settling into my bones. I wasn't sad. I wasn't grieving. I was just done. I went straight to my office, grabbing a folder I had prepared earlier that day. Inside were the divorce papers, already filled out, just waiting for signature. Amber walked in as I placed them on the kitchen counter. She had changed out of her dress, wearing something casual, like she thought playing the role of the apologetic wife would fix this. "Tom," she started, her voice careful. I held up a hand. "Don't." Her lips pressed together. "You're not even going to let me explain?" I tilted my head, studying her. "Go ahead. Explain." She hesitated. I was just gambling. That's all. The manager, he comped me things because I was a good customer. That's it. I smirked, shaking my head. "You think I'm that stupid?" Her eyes flashed with something. Anger, maybe. "It's the truth." I stepped closer, my voice even. "You lied about where you were. You lied about the money. You lied about him." She swallowed. I got caught up in it. It wasn't serious. It never meant anything. I let out a slow breath, nodding. "Good." I grabbed the folder, flipping it open. "Then signing these shouldn't be a problem." Her face paled. "Tom." I placed a pen on top of the papers. "We're done, Amber." She stared at me, and for the first time, I saw something real in her expression. Panic. She wasn't upset about losing me. She was upset about losing everything else. She shook her head. "No, we can fix this. You're just angry. We need to talk." "No, you need to talk. You need to spin this. Make me the bad guy. Find a way to make this not your fault." I pointed to the papers. "But I'm not playing anymore." Her hands curled into fists. "You can't just throw everything away." I met her gaze, steady. "You already did." For a moment, she just stood there, staring at me like she didn't recognize the man in front of her. Then, without another word, she turned and walked away. I didn't follow. I had nothing left to say. Amber didn't sign the papers. I knew she wouldn't, at least not right away. She wasn't the type to accept consequences easily. For years, she had gotten away with bending the truth, manipulating situations, making herself look like the victim. But this time, there was no way out. No carefully crafted excuse, no teary-eyed apology was going to fix what she had done. I wasn't interested in fixing it. I left early the next morning, making sure to grab everything I needed before she could try to corner me. I had already taken care of the money. Every joint account had been cleared, our savings secured under my name alone. The mortgage transfer had gone through overnight. I was the sole owner of the house now. Amber had nothing. I sat in my truck for a long moment, staring at my phone, considering whether or not to call her. But what was there to say? She knew what she had done. And after last night, she knew exactly what was coming. Instead, I called my lawyer. "Tom," he answered, his voice calm and professional. "Everything's in place on my end. Have you spoken to her yet?" "She knows," I said. "She's stalling." He sighed. "That's expected. She's going to fight this, at least for a little while. Just be prepared." "I am." I ran a hand over my face. "Can we speed this up?" "There's a mandatory waiting period for finalization, but considering you have solid evidence, you have the upper hand. If she refuses to sign, we'll take it to court, and she'll lose even more." I smirked. She doesn't have anything left to lose. That was the difference between Amber and me. I had built something. She had gambled everything away. By the time I got back home that evening, she was waiting for me. The living room lights were dimmed, soft music playing in the background, the scent of something cooking in the air. For a split second, I almost laughed. She was really trying this. She turned when I walked in, smiling hesitantly. "Hey." I shut the door behind me. "What are you doing, Amber?" She wiped her hands on a kitchen towel. "I made dinner." I raised an eyebrow. "Since when do you cook?" She laughed softly, like we were just having a normal conversation. "I just thought we could talk. Sit down, have a meal. No fighting, no tension. Just us." I studied her, noting the way she had done her hair, the way she had picked a dress I used to love on her. She was playing the part perfectly. The remorseful wife. The woman who had made a mistake, but just needed a second chance. I stepped closer. "No tension." She nodded, hopeful. I leaned in, lowering my voice. Amber, you were in another man's penthouse suite 2 nights ago. She flinched. Tom, I cut her off. And now you think cooking a meal is going to erase that? She exhaled slowly, bracing herself against the counter. I was stupid. I know that. But we've been together too long to just throw it all away over one mistake. One mistake. I laughed, shaking my head. You've been doing this for months. Her eyes flashed with something, guilt, frustration, anger. She wasn't used to being backed into a corner. It wasn't about him. I tilted my head. No, it was about she hesitated. I don't know. I felt stuck. You were always working, and I don't know. I made a bad decision, but I don't want to lose you. You don't want to lose this, I corrected, gesturing to the house around us. You don't want to lose the comfort, the security. You don't want to lose the man who's been paying your bills while you played high roller at the casino. That's not true, she whispered. It is, I said, my voice calm. You thought you could get away with it. That's why you never panicked. That's why you were so confident. You knew I wouldn't look, that I wouldn't question anything. I let out a slow breath. But you got greedy, and you got sloppy. Her hands trembled slightly, and for a second, I thought she might break. But then she straightened, drawing in a sharp breath. We can still fix this. I laughed. Amber, I don't want to fix this. Silence. Her lips parted slightly, as if the thought had never even occurred to her. That I wouldn't want to fight for this. That I wouldn't beg to keep her. She blinked rapidly. You're serious. I nodded. Completely. Tears welled in her eyes, but I wasn't moved. I'll do anything, she said suddenly, stepping closer. I'll go to therapy. I'll get help. You'll sign the divorce papers. She shook her head, her breathing uneven. Tom, please. I turned away. Pack a bag. What? You heard me. I looked back at her, my expression cold. I own this house now. You don't live here anymore. The realization hit her like a brick. You changed the paperwork. I nodded. She covered her mouth with her hands, shaking her head in disbelief. You can't do this. I already did. She stared at me, and I saw it then, the fear, not of losing me, but of losing the life she had built off my hard work. She had never expected this. Amber wasn't crying because she loved me. She was crying because she had lost. Thank you for listening to the end. I hope you enjoyed it very much. Don't forget to give a like and tell us in the comments what you would do in such a situation.